Hey, Foot Clan. Today's episode is brought to you by H.H. Greg's Ultimate Fan Cave Sweepstakes. If you were drafting your Ultimate Fan Cave team, what would you take? Would it be a big screen TV? Would it be a grill? A massive refrigerator? William the Refrigerator Perry is the commissioner of the Ultimate Fan Cave Sweepstakes, and you want to go enter this because you can win $5,000 to build your own Ultimate Fan Cave. Go to hhgreg.com/fancave to enter.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Good morning, fellow fantasy footballers. Woo! We got a good show for you today. Some fantasy rewind. We're going to talk all about week one, all that magical stuff we saw yesterday. We've got the fantasy StudMuffins of the week. The guys that didn't do so good.
They might have pooped in their big boy pants.
We've got a Monday Night Football preview, some mailbag if we have time. Welcome to the show. We are the Fantasy Footballers. You can find us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. I'm here with Mike, the Fantasy Hitman Wright.
Greetings.
And Jason Babyface Moore.
It is real. Football is here. I'm so happy to
that was fun.
See results.
That was a lot of fun. It was very entertaining to interact with the Foot Clan on Twitter this weekend. And lots to get to, lots to go through. You can also find us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com. You can learn more about our show and how to join the Foot Clan community on jointhefoot.com. Guys, quick question. Are you signing Marcus Mariota?
Maybe. Maybe.
Not a bad debut to be performing like that when the first pick of the draft is across the aisle, so to speak, from you.
Oh, I thought he looked good, but I'm not overreacting to the 4 touchdowns with the limited throwing, and it was an overall team just beat down of the Buccaneers.
Yeah, the Buccaneers did not look good, and a lot of I think those last 2 touchdowns came after Winston picks that just kind of set him up perfect for scoring opportunities. And man, I'll tell you who I'm not going out to sign, and that's Jameis Winston. I was in the middle of texting Andy. For all the Foot Clan listeners out there, you might not know we play flag football. Oh yeah,
because we're real. We live it.
We live it. And Andy Holloway.
Oh my goodness.
Andy Holloway is our quarterback in that league. And so I was texting Andy. I had been watching that game. I was texting him, I think you throw better than Jameis Winston, when I couldn't get the text out before he threw the worst screen pass pick, just lobbed it to a defender, and I was like,
look, I'll take the moment to, obviously I throw better than Jameis Winston, but I'll take the moment to defend him in this regard. He was, when your first NFL throw is a pick six of the variety that he threw, there was deer in the headlights after that, and he was trying to pretend like it wasn't that way, but he just was uncomfortable. No Mike Evans. Got behind early, which changes your game plan. It changes the way the defense plays you. It was not good. Not good.
Not good.
And I will be owning a lot of defenses that are facing Tampa because of it's the interception potential. That's all you want. Like Bortles last year. I mean, he's just going to throw a couple.
Mariota only threw the ball 16 times.
Yeah.
So if you can get a touchdown every 4th pass, sure, sign me up for that.
Exactly. So, all right, guys, let's go ahead and get right into some of the news and notes.
News and notes from around the league.
Well, there's a lot to get to, so I'm going to start with the more unfortunate variety, the injury report.
Who did you kill this week, Fantasy Reaper?
Oh, my gosh. The tweets came in about Nick Mangold going down.
Oh, man.
And now the official report is he just got punched in the...
He got man-zoned.
He got man-zoned. There were like 4 players I saw have that happen to him this week. Larry Fitzgerald went limping off the field in the same regard. But people thought I had basically sniped Mangold on the field there. I mean, it was like 10 tweets came through in a second, like, Mangold down, Mangold down, fear the Reaper. So, no, Mangold is okay. Mangold is okay, as is his beard.
His future for fathering may be slightly down.
I reaped the future. All right. Andre Ellington, for the local fans here in Arizona, very disappointing to see him go down. Non-contact injury.
In a heap.
You know what? The way he went down, though, like he knew right away, and he took some pressure off the knee. The reports are right now PCL injury week to week. We don't have a lot of information. Something could break on the show this morning that would update that, and we'll let you know. But right now, it is a very favorable report compared to the fears of an ACL or even a PCL tear. It could be the similar report that we saw from Larry Fitzgerald last year, where he had a PCL strain,
Right.
or a multi-week injury, but not a season-ending injury. And so let's talk real quick about Andre Ellington owners. I'm going to run out real quick and grab the Cardinals backup, and that's going to be Chris Johnson.
If you need him this week, you go with Chris Johnson. If the news breaks that it's a long-term injury and you have running backs to get by, you pick up David. Oh, I apologize. David Johnson.
Now, David Johnson only had five offensive snaps in week 1.
Yeah, he did pretty good with those 5 snaps, though.
And only one touch.
Yes, he used it well on that game-winning touchdown. Honestly, I like Chris Johnson for the short term. I think, Mike, you spelled it out perfectly. Short-term Chris Johnson, long-term David Johnson. But Andre Ellington looked really good before he went down. And one of the big surprises to me, I was listening to Steve Keim this morning, the general manager from the Arizona Cardinals. He would give the game ball to Jonathan Cooper. Jonathan Cooper, the guard who was the highest picked guard in like 30 years in the NFL draft a couple years ago, who lost his rookie season. But he had a great game, and so that bodes well for the Cardinals' running game moving forward. So right now, Chris Johnson looks pretty decent.
All right, so let's talk about a couple other injuries here. Deshaun Jackson put up a goose egg. He had a hamstring injury. What's the latest report on D-Jax? Because that's going to hurt that offense as a whole.
Yeah, we don't have a complete update on his injury, but it looked bad, man.
Now, we know there's an MRI happening today on the hamstring.
And hamstrings are anything from 1 to 2 weeks to multi-week injuries that can be nagging for the season. So it's not good news for D-Jax owners.
So let's talk T.Y. Hilton, because there's a lot of fear going around. Hilton, obviously a high pick. The report right now is only a bruised knee. That's good news.
That's great news. It was looking like it was a couple weeks, and now it's day to day. He might miss this 1 week or so, but that's definitely better news than what was expected.
Do you want to own? Is it a bump for Andre Johnson?
Yeah, if he's out, I think Andre Johnson does take a bump up because he becomes the de facto number one. I know, Mike, you're pretty high on Dante
Moncrief got I think he
scored a touchdown.
He was in on I believe about 75% of snaps. The people thought the preseason hype was it's going to be Philip Dorsett. It was not Dorsett. Dorsett botched a punt catch, and Moncrief, like you said, he scored, and Moncrief has always had the talent. We just thought he was going to get buried. So if he's going to get playing time, you want him on your team.
Yeah, that offense as a whole looked very out of sync. Obviously, a great debut for Rex Ryan's defense in Buffalo. It was really no contest.
Yeah.
There was just nothing, whether you had Frank Gore or Hilton, Andre Johnson, it didn't matter. Andrew Luck disappointed tons of fantasy owners this weekend. So, a sign of things to come for Buffalo's defense, maybe. They were very good last year. They'll be very good this year. A couple quarterback notes. Derek Carr, Josh McCown both went out this weekend. Carr went out with a hand injury. All reports are negative on injury, a broken bone. And then Josh McCown went out with a concussion and gave way to Johnny Turnover.
Hey,
he came in through a strike touchdown first.
All right,
before turning it over.
Yeah. All right. Two other big injury news notes.
The biggest one of them all.
Dez Bryant and Demaryius Thomas. Now, Dez has a broken bone in his foot. This is 4 to 6 week injury.
Allegedly 4 to 6.
Yes, that is the report.
Well,
all of it is allegedly.
Well, I'm saying that's what is being reported. But there's quite a few on Twitter. There's these great doctor guys and gals who will break down injuries because they're actually orthopedic surgeons. They're real life doctors.
They're not Jones.
Yeah.
Himself.
Well, they're not sports reporters. I mean, they, so to speak, that their main job is being a doctor. And from some very trusted sources of mine who have been quite accurate predicting injuries, they say 4 to 6 is probably the short term.
For the Dez injury?
Yeah.
And so talk to me, Mike, a little bit about the impact on that offense, that Dez going down, and what would you do with like a Terrence Williams, a Cole Beasley, a Jason Witten, and the running back core?
I think it's a big bump for Jason Witten. It's also a bump for Terrence Williams. He's going to be the number 1. And Dez Bryant didn't play in preseason, and there was talk about Romo's chemistry building with his other wide receivers because he didn't have Dez to throw to. So Terrence Williams is a guy who has flashed in the past. He had a couple near misses in Sunday night's game, so he's a guy that I'm looking to add.
I'm going to muse on this for just a moment. The Cowboys with DeMarco Murray would be a Super Bowl contender to me. And it is just disappointing because I don't think they can get there without the running game they had last year, and I didn't see that last night. But Tony Romo has come so far in terms of being a very what a game. What a game last night. Losing Dez, leading 2 drives that seemed to take about 1 second each to march the field, seeing the defense. Tony Romo came out and validated Jason's pick here as the start of the week and just shredded the Giants when that game should have been over. So pretty crazy.
And real quick, at the beginning of the game, the running game from Dallas looked pretty strong. But remember, this is the Giants. They were not a good running defense last year. They appear to be on that same track this year. So the real test will be when they actually play a stout front 7. That'll be a real test for Joey Randle.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let me tell you about my new good friends over at Harry's. Last week I mentioned that I had ordered a razor and a whole kit from Harrys.com. Well, it came in, and I got to use it today. And let me tell you, shaving in general can be a pain. You know, it can be uncomfortable, razor burn, nicks. On top of that, it's super expensive. I feel like you either have to buy a super, super expensive razor that, you know, you're spending $32 for an 8-pack of blades, or you can affordably destroy your face.
That ain't right.
That is not right. Well, I got my Harry's kit in this week, and I can honestly say I have never had as good a razor on my face. And in addition to that, the shave cream, oh, that was delightful.
Luxurious.
I have apparently never used a good shave cream in my life. So let me tell you what you need to do. You need to go to Harry's now, and Harry's will give you $5 off if you type in our coupon code FOOTBALLERS for your first purchase. That's harrys.com, and enter in the coupon code FOOTBALLERS. You can get an amazing deal for $10. You get a razor, moisturizing shave cream, and 3 razor blades. Go and do it today.
I also want to mention this. Some amazing tweets came in with people's fan cave setups, the TV setups and those type of things, because we were talking about how many TVs we'd like. I want to tell you about it. You heard it at the beginning of the show. H.H. Gregg is throwing an ultimate fan cave sweepstakes for the month of September. You can enter to win the grand prize of a $5,000 H.H. Gregg gift card to help build your ultimate fan cave. Who would you draft for your ultimate fan cave? What's your number 1 pick, Mike?
Television, of course.
Jason?
Well, it's got to be the television.
Got to be that Ultra HD 4K?
Yes.
And then it's all food for you after that, right?
Oreos.
Yes. $5,000 of food.
This is great, though. You go to hhgregg.com/fan-cave. That's hhgregg.com/fan-cave to enter. They've got weekly $500 gift card prizes. They've got footballs autographed by the commissioner of the Ultimate Fan Cave Sweepstakes, which is William the Refrigerator Perry, as you remember, and season tickets, T-shirts designed by Fresh Brewed Tees. It's a great promotion, so go there right now. The Ultimate Fan Cave Sweepstakes. It's running all through the month of September. hhgregg.com/fan cave. All right, guys, let's go ahead and talk about some of the players that stood out this week and some of the ones that stood out in the wrong ways.
This week's Fantasy Stud Muffins.
All right, there were plenty of them. This week's Fantasy Stud Muffins, I'm very excited to say several were in our starts of the week, as well as guys we've talked about during the offseason. I much prefer tweets saying, I won this week because I drafted Tyler Eifert, instead of ones that say,
woohoo, Eifert.
Yeah.
Let's start right there.
All right, let's do
Eifert.
it.
My goodness. It wasn't just Eifert. There was a lot of tight ends that
Is
exploded.
that why you drafted Tyler Eifert that high in the NFL draft?
Yeah.
Because of that kind of potential?
First-round pick, Tyler Eifert was clearly the number 2 option behind A.J. Green. And even though he was the number 2 option, he was the number 1 fantasy option for the Cincinnati Bengals. You have to factor in the Oakland's defense isn't the strongest right now. But Eifert, man, 2 touchdowns over 100 yards.
You can't just say it's the Oakland defense, though. Some of those catches, I mean, there was a pass where the defender was all over him, and he just went up and grabbed it.
One of his touchdowns.
Yeah, one of his touchdowns. It was not just a bad defense. Eifert is legit.
Well, and the reality is that game was over.
Yeah.
Really quickly, too. So that the passing game didn't have to do a lot in the second half. So Eifert was a big fantasy stud muffin for the week. So I have to mention then Travis Kelce in the same breath as a lot of fantasy tight ends. This was like the week of the tight end. Jason Witten had a huge week. Eric Ebron had a touchdown. Jordan Reed had a really good week.
Safarian Jenkins.
Oh, yeah.
So Kelce, though, Zeus came out, 2 touchdowns, put up, I think it was 2 for 62 and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter.
Yeah, it was huge output right away.
Not to mention an air guitar while he ran down the sideline and then punched the football.
That was awesome.
That was one of the best celebrations I've ever seen.
Very, very impressive. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about some fantasy wide receivers that stood out this week. Who's the guy that jumped off the page to you?
Keenan Allen.
Yeah,
man.
that would be the one.
15 receptions, 166 yards on 17 targets. He was the man.
That's the Allen we remember from his rookie year where he had the humongous sophomore slump. Keenan Allen was a very interesting guy to know how to rank this year because last year was considered such a down year. But, man, the targets were through the roof, especially against Detroit, who last year was a great passing defense. Maybe things have come down this year, but Keenan Allen, man, it was spectacular.
Watching that game, I think both defenses are legitimate going forward. And Keenan Allen looked good, not because of the defense, but in spite of the defense.
He was open. It wasn't forcing targets to Keenan Allen.
Why you no open. Touchdown? You get the ball 15 times. Come on, Keenan. We expect more.
Yeah, that game was an interesting one because it seemed like Detroit was going to run away with it early. They made some plays on defense, but very much like Romo, Rivers is just kind of steady guy, and went out and won the game. He just consistently picked up first downs. Keenan Allen was a big part of that. Would you rather own Keenan Allen right now or DeAndre Hopkins?
Hopkins
Even
was
despite the offense being – I mean, Hopkins made his – it was kind of an opposite situation, right? Keenan put up huge yards and no touchdowns. Hopkins, he had a good game yardage-wise, target-wise, obviously. He was like 9 for 90-something.
Yeah, I mean, Hopkins
but 2 touchdowns for Hopkins, too.
Hopkins had the better fantasy week.
Yes.
And you saw his route running is just – fantastic. He runs, the quarterback throws to a spot and he grabs it.
Which quarterback though?
That's the thing. It happened with both. So I think you're fine moving forward.
I thought you were asking would I rather have Rivers with the Texans quarterback.
No.
Like, why is this a question?
No, not a question. Yeah, that's another with the Arian Foster news coming out this week that he could be back sooner than expected. Again, who knows really? I mean, what was it? Lock and Fora came out and said week 2 maybe.
Well, Lock and Forest said week 3 at the worst.
But then Bill O'Brien came out and said no. That's all Bill O'Brien. They asked him, is Foster, could he be back next week? No.
I'm not listening to a head coach
Fair
talk
enough.
about injuries.
Yeah, that would be a nice surprise to spring on your opposition, huh? So let's talk about some running backs then, guys. Oh, here it comes. All right.
Choo Choo! Woo! It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah,
for a week 1 debut.
There's nothing like a million choo-choos on your Twitter,
Ameer
wall.
Abdullah.
What happened the first time Ameer Abdullah got a running back carry in the NFL?
I believe he went for a touchdown. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna give you your time. I mean, just put on the ribbon, put on the jersey.
Ameer Abdullah is electric, my friends. He's
gonna tear his own ACL.
No.
I'm gonna tell you right now. Those cuts.
No, he's a rubber band man. He's good to go. He can stretch. But on that first run, it was a 22 yards, I believe. He made that safety look ridiculous.
It was like a basketball player when he crosses a guy over. That's what it reminded me of. It was like one of those old Tim Hardaway.
Yeah, if you watch the run from behind, he intentionally angles right just to cross him over left. I mean, it was impressive. People have been asking on Twitter all the time, how am I going to react to the Abdullah above Bell fantasy production this week? I'm going to react fine. I mean, clearly Abdullah was involved, but from a perspective of watching, I watched every snap of that entire game. from a pure touches perspective, it was very close. Abdullah had 3 more touches. There was no goal line carries available for Joik. It's his first game back. If I'm choosing somebody to own the rest of the year, it's close. It's very close.
Ooh,
because
it's now close. Okay.
Because
okay.
Abdullah is targeted in the passing game, and he needs one play. Now, he's involved in special teams, too. He can make a play on special teams.
I was going to say the stat line, I don't have it exactly right in front of me, but of his combined rushing, catching, and return yards had not been done in about 50 years.
If you get return yards in a league, Ameer Abdullah is very valuable.
Listen. People need to understand this, though, because this is what happens in fantasy football in week 1. There were 15 carries for the entire Detroit Lions offense, okay? 15. That is not a lot of carries, and they were evenly distributed between Abdullah and Joik. And so don't make too much out of week 1 in the sense that I just saw somebody ask me, I'm being offered C.J. Anderson for Abdullah now because Abdullah had some flashy plays. I just think that could be a mistake. I said take it. Take the deal. Get C.J.
Yeah, it's still week 1.
So the Abdullah electric for sure.
One thing I want is if anyone has video editing skills, I want the and one announcer. I don't know if you guys are familiar with and one. I want him cut into that first Abdullah. He's like, oh baby.
And they lost. They lost the game.
Who cares?
Yeah, well,
Abdullah did not
lose. Choo your way there. All right, some other standout running backs. Chris Ivory.
Your start of the week.
Yes, Chris Ivory 2 touchdowns. Could have had 3. He was certainly, and he didn't even pick up a carry, I think, in the fourth quarter. That game was put away. But Chris Ivory performed very, very well. Almost had 100 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Matt Forte made us look.
He's a young buck, apparently. He was
his usage was
it was just high.
Was very high, and I'm not saying this is why I was wrong. His usage looked great.
Yep.
And Adam Gase looked like he knew how to use Matt Forte. So
yep. And Jeffrey did play in that game. Was targeted a team high 13 times, I think, but just not a consistent performance from that offense. It was for a while. They were staying with the Packers, but then Cutler threw his classic late game interception.
And I'm throwing an audible in here because he's not on our list. Tyrod Taylor, up in Buffalo, looked very good.
And obviously Mariota.
Yes.
For debuts.
But Mariota he's kind of the ESPN splash right now. But
between the two, who would you rather have, though?
Oh, man, that's tough.
I think it's one of those things where Tyrod Taylor is going to do what Rex Ryan wants him to do, which is probably going to be throw about 1 touchdown a week.
Maybe, but his legs, man, he took off with the ball, he looked decisive, and he looked very Russell Wilson-esque, and as a smart runner, not just the Michael Vick, I'm going to throw my body out and get destroyed.
Did I make my Percy Harvin prediction on the air?
You did not, you coward.
I told these guys last week, I said, watch surprise week, Percy Harvin. And Sammy Watkins didn't catch a pass.
It did happen.
Where was Sammy Watkins?
He was...
Wait, we're going to... Hold on a second.
Pooped in his big boy pants.
Now you can talk about Sammy Watkins.
Where was Sammy Watkins, sir? You pooped in your big boy pants.
Sammy Watkins was in the Vontae Davisville.
He was swallowed up by Vontae Davis.
We have inside information. I don't know if you caught this in the interview with our good friend, currently suspended, Marty McBride. He said that Vontae Davis was the best corner he played.
That's true. That's true. And Sammy Watkins, I don't even know if he was he targeted? I don't know if Sammy Watkins was targeted.
I think he was. I think he was targeted at least a few times.
So not a good week for Sammy Watkins. Some other guys that underperformed. I'm going to read them out, and then you guys just pick a guy to talk about. C.J. Anderson and the entire Denver offense.
We got to talk about Anderson real quick because we didn't talk about he has a possible sprained toe, which could be a big deal for C.J. Anderson.
It could be a big deal for Ronnie Hillman.
Exactly.
Calvin Johnson, Lamar Miller, Alfred Blue, Justin Forsett, Frank Gore. A bunch of guys that underwhelmed in week 1 for their ownership. Is there anybody, kind of the focus of and why we do these sections is part of the analysis and the thought process behind it is this a 1-week anomalous type of performance, or is this a panic alarm type of thing? And we certainly don't want to overreact to week 1, but is there anybody in this list, CJ, Calvin, Lamar, Blue, Forsett, Gore, Watkins, that you're concerned about long-term? Because that's the question for fantasy owners, and that's how you make a move. You react to long-term prognosis.
I think just like the guys who had great week ones, I'm not going to overreact to any of these. What was concerning for me was Lamar Miller, and it wasn't him as a talent at all. He looked perfectly fine. The problem was the play calling. What happened?
It's unbelievable.
In Miami, it was just moronic what they were doing. As his usage was just far too low. Hopefully they correct that going into next week, but it's coaching buffoonery.
Jason, I was going to ask you about Lamar specifically because he's kind of been your guy.
Yeah, I love him.
What did you see? What did you not see? And what do you think is going to happen with him? Because certainly underwhelming.
What I saw was him not being used. What I loved in preseason week 3 especially, and what really kind of pushed him over the edge for me, was how they used him. It literally comes down to usage. I don't think he played poorly. I don't think he had the opportunity to play well. And that's always been a little bit of the concern
That's what I was
with
going to
Lamar
ask
Miller.
you. Isn't that exactly the par for the course in that situation?
Right, and so you can be worried about it, but I think the fact that they had such a terribly hard time beating the Washington Redskins is going to make them look and say, we got to change some stuff. So I'm still high on Lamar Miller in general going forward. I'm not going to overreact from this week. The one guy from this, I look at this list and they all have some kind of reason and excuse. For instance, San Diego has a great pass defense from last year, and it looks like it carried over. But Calvin Johnson is a guy who, there are some that worry we're getting towards the downward part of his career, and there was nothing but downward parts of his game this week.
There was not much to see.
And so that would be one concern to look at going forward. But again, there's not a guy on this list I want to overreact to. The one guy who's not on this list that I want to overreact in anger, not in moving forward, is Greg Olsen.
Whoa.
I wasn't watching.
He should be in this list.
Yeah, I wasn't watching that game live. I took Greg. I will admit this. In our league where I ended up with Greg Olsen and you ended up with Kelce, I took him like 2 picks ahead because we're half-point PPR and I wanted that. And I was not watching this game live at the time, and so I kept wondering, is Greg Olsen injured? He's got one catch for 11 yards, and then the game kept moving on, and that didn't change.
Yeah. I mean, it
What in the
was
world?
just a disappearing act. 14 carries for Cam Newton, a very low-scoring game, very plodding game.
You underestimated the value of Jericho Cotchery, my friend.
Well,
You are correct.
honestly, that's what it comes down to with that offense, though, is you're going to probably have like 1 to 2 passing reception touchdowns a game. And so without the PPR value that Jason alluded to, you're in trouble. So I do want to rotate back to a very important focus here. And I watched a lot of this game. You could chalk it up to 2 defenses playing very well. I think Denver's defense is great. I think they didn't want to do a lot to lose the game. But man alive, did that Denver offense look bad. And it was all underneath, and Peyton completed no passes of over 20 yards and took about 5 or 6 sacks. I mean, without protection and that old man body, there's going to be a lot of trouble.
Terrell Suggs went out, and it did not matter. I mean, it didn't make their defense look any worse because the Broncos' offense did nothing.
Yeah, I'm not red alarming Peyton Manning yet.
Yep.
It was just week 1. And the same, I got lots of Justin Forsett. Do I trade while his value is still high? Not at all. I think that
He actually pieced together an okay game by the end of it.
The Denver has spectacular cornerbacks, spectacular, and they shut down the passing game, which means that that they're able to stuff the box against Justin Forsett. And so what I will say is it could be a little bit tough for Justin Forsett until Perryman gets in the lineup and can start spreading things like Torrey Smith did last year. And we have no idea when Perryman's going to get in, but I'm absolutely not bailing on Forsett.
So
yet.
based on this game, you go out and trade for Brandon McManus.
Based on this game, yes.
Yeah, he's going to be putting up a lot of field.
There was a point where it was just, pure special team scoring for the entirety of the game. Is that how it ended?
I think so. Did anyone score a touchdown?
I
can't remember one.
The final score of that game was 19-13. So I think there was
there was a defensive touchdown.
there were multiple defensive touchdowns, 2 pick sixes, and then a special teams touchdown. Right?
Hey, Emmanuel Sanders looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes.
We got to mention that because he was, we haven't talked about him. he was out with the hamstring injury in preseason and kind of a quiet, forgotten guy. But if the arm strength is being lost on Peyton, then a guy like Emmanuel Sanders is a great option.
And D. Thomas this one's being downplayed, but he's getting an X-ray on his wrist. We don't have an update for this, so I'm not freaking out.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, but it's interesting that people are not talking about this.
All right, I'm going to take a couple minutes now before we get to the mailbag, I want to just basically go through the games. Give me some bullet points that stood out to you. I'm going to go through them pretty quick. So we've talked a lot about the big standouts, but there were other players that made a mark, guys that you're either buying into or not buying into. You know, an example would be like Jordan Cameron led the Dolphins for receiving in that game. So let's start there. Let's start with the Dolphins-Redskins. It was a game that I said the Redskins might steal. They were up 10-0 and they couldn't get it done. But Dolphins-Redskins, Pierre Garçon had a good game. Anything else stand out from that one?
Alfred Morris looked like he was running great. I think he finished with 120 plus yards.
Garçon is an interesting wide receiver if Deshaun Jackson misses any time.
Packers-Bears, James Jones made an appearance.
Oh, James Jones.
There is this I got a tweet this morning. Do I drop Devontae Adams for James Jones?
No.
Please, no.
Devontae Adams
I'll admit I underestimated the chemistry between James Jones and Rodgers' willingness to throw it up to him. I told these guys that morning that, we've done the math, right? Rodgers throws for 4,000 plus yards. It's got to go someplace. So James Jones had a big game, but he was targeted the least among the receivers. So this is a touchdown game.
Yes, and I'm not. Adams his touchdowns will come.
All right, Jason, did you see anything else out of the Jets-Browns game that we should pay attention to?
No. I think Chris Ivory looks
Decker and Marshall both scored.
Yeah. Marshall looked good. You were telling me about a play that I really want to go see.
Oh, Brandon Marshall. There was an interception, and like a clear interception. Then Brandon Marshall just snatched it out of the defender's hands, and the defender went down like, what just happened?
You can't do that.
So it was almost a hosing for Brandon Marshall's fantasy value.
All right, the Chiefs topped the Texans. This game was a blowout that turned into a close one. Alex Smith had a big fantasy game. Do you buy into him during the year? Because he's somebody who is higher on my list. I don't know if it'll continue or not.
Yeah, he's got the weapons to throw to.
Still hasn't thrown a touchdown to a wide receiver.
Yeah, but I do like Alex Smith. I've got a lot of Alex Smith in my MFL 10s. It's one of my teams. I've got Alex Smith and Mariota, liking that for week 1. But, I like him going forward as a startable player. We've been talking about streaming options. He's going to be on your waiver. He's a great option for streaming.
Yeah, he's always been a great streaming option in Kansas City. If he has a good matchup, then you throw him in.
Macklin made a mark on that offense.
Yeah,
big time. Even though he didn't score, he had a pretty good game, and it stretches the field. It changes the underneath routes. Kelce got open. Charles had a good game.
Yeah, I like the Chiefs' offense, and their defense is just monstrous, man.
All right, we got to talk about Mike's favorite player in the NFL, the winning quarterback for the St. Louis Rams, Nick Foles. The Rams topped the Seahawks 34-31. It looked like they were going to gift this game back to the Seahawks because it had looked over. But they pulled it out.
And what's interesting about this game for me was Benny Cunningham was solid. He was solid for fantasy, and the Rams were able to run. What that speaks more to me is Todd Gurley, once healthy, could be a monster, which we all know he could be because he was great in college. But the concern was, will the team be able to use him? And you going up against the Seahawks, one of the best running defenses in the league. Now they were minus Cam Chancellor. They might be looking
to
paying
him
that contract.
What did they say? $900,000 apart, and he wasn't on the field.
Yeah, that might be that $900,000
loss
needle mover
for
them. But that speaks positively to me from week 1.
Jason, let's talk about the Cardinals-Saints game. The game out here, Cardinals topped the Saints 31-19. Talk about what you saw on both sides of the ball there. Mark Ingram had a good game.
Mark Ingram looked great, and I love the fact that he was used in the passing game. I had someone write in and ask me, do I start Mark Ingram or another guy? And the reason that I went with Ingram was because in preseason they used him in the passing game. In college, Ingram was a very good pass catcher, and we just haven't seen that in the NFL. If that goes forward, then Ingram is someone that I really like. I also like C.J. Spiller when he returns, because Kyrie Robinson had a lot of usage. And it looks like they are dominating the screen game. That might just be because that was a giant weakness for Arizona. And on the Arizona side, we talked a little bit about it, but the offensive line looked better than I thought they would, given recent
parts
injuries.
of that game, yeah.
And for running specifically. So Chris Johnson looks good.
If you have to own one Cardinal receiver for the rest of the year, is it John Brown?
Yeah, it's got to be John Brown.
It's really,
In
really
standard,
close.
it would be John Brown for me.
Yeah, standard, I can see that. PPR is probably still Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald is gonna get it done.
Well,
man.
and if Fitzgerald caught that one pass when he was wide open, that's another 30, 40 yards.
Yes.
Well,
That would have been on his number. He would have
keep
been
in
like
mind,
7 for
when
120.
When did Fitz come on? Fitz came on more towards the second half, right?
That is
You
correct.
realize that Michael only
Floyd?
played. Yeah, Michael Floyd only played one snap in the second half. So I think you started to see that he played the first half.
When Floyd was coming off an injury too, so
Right.
Palmer though put up a big week for our Foot Clan members out there that started Palmer, so I was happy to see that. Last one I'm going to touch on before I get to some mailbag, and I want to mention a few other things. But the Raiders specifically, we talked about the Bengals, we talked about Eifert, and Jeremy Hill had a good game. AJ Green had a fine game, he just didn't get in the end zone. So from the Raiders side, Derek Carr went down, and this meant very, very bad things from a
Matt McGloin.
Yeah, Matt McGloin. Latavius Murray pieced together a game by volume.
But
Yeah.
by volume
And by pass catching.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say in the receiving game. Everyone was like, "Oh, he didn't catch a pass in the preseason."
That was
I wasn't worried about it.
everyone by me.
Let me
yes.
just mention something else here.
Yeah.
You thought I'd let it go, Mike.
No, I
not
didn't.
a chance. You guys answer this question. Who was a healthy scratch?
Hello.
Roy Halou.
Goodbye.
Roy Halou was a healthy scratch.
Yeah, so not good. As was Dwayne Bowe,
He
the
was-
$9 million healthy scratch.
Roy Halou was a healthy scratch, and how did the Raiders do?
Oh, come on.
It is completely
Come
linked
on.
together. If Roy Halou was in that
I
game,
was going to say, there have been a lot of healthy scratches over the last 15 years you can blame for that offense.
Roy Halou changes that entire game around.
All right. Let's go ahead. I want to let people know kind of what we're doing during the year, too. Tomorrow, we're going to get really into the waivers. If you're waiting to hear waiver names, you probably heard a few today. But we're really going to focus on that tomorrow so that you're ready to sign guys. We've got 2 Monday Night Football games, the Eagles at the Falcons, the Vikings at the 49ers that we're going to be going over tomorrow as well. And so stay tuned for that. We're going to give you your top-to-bottom waiver wire pickups, the guys that we think you should jump on, the guys you should ignore, and the guys you might want to target. We're going to talk a lot of buy low type of situations. Everybody wants to trade. We get tons of trade questions each and every week. So we're going to kind of say, hey, no, don't overreact to that guy. No Ogletrees, Kevin Ogletrees signing from a
yes.
couple years ago. So let's go ahead and answer some listener questions for tonight.
Mailbag.
All righty. Jaron in Chandler, Arizona. By the way, if you have a question, you can go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. Click the Submit a Question button in the upper right-hand corner. It's easy as pie. If you have a desperate, quick question, you can also ask those on there. We've got some 24-hour guaranteed answers if you need them. So Jaron in Chandler says, I play in a league of 10 that's filled with what feels like ultra-conservative types, and he's talking about trading. He's offered up trades where he feels like he's offering better value, and they are routinely rejected. It's a rarity to get a trade through. Any advice on how to encourage trade activity? Have the three of you played in a league where this was an ongoing thing?
I have my second. I consider I have 2 like home leagues essentially, and one of them is extremely active, and the other one is not. It's like pulling teeth to get a trade through, and I personally believe it's because we're not all real life interacting with each other on a day-to-day basis. So what you have to do is you have to build up the community. This might be a long process. But we have, for our league, we have a Facebook group, and it's very active. People are in it every single day, just talking junk,
Posting funny pictures.
Yeah, you're getting people involved together as a group, and that's where I think the chemistry comes in, where people are willing to trade. And if you're just not talking to each other, and you get this completely anonymous, oh, I want to trade this guy for this guy, and there's no conversation and no back and forth. It's just one email. It's a lot harder to get those things done.
I will also say there's a boy who cried wolf aspect to the trade offers. If you are the guy that offers like 10 of them a week for every week of the year, then it's going to be hard to recognize a good deal from all the other deals that you sent across. So, All right, Z the Genie in New York.
It would have been better if it was Zini.
Yeah.
Zini the Genie.
Zini the Genie. I have T.Y. Hilton. Assuming he's out, I'll be able to put him on the IR, which we don't think he'll have to go on IR. But what receivers should he be targeting? James Jones, Kendall Wright, Dante Moncrief. Also, is Wheaton worth dropping?
Yes. I think he's worth dropping. I mean,
I completely agree.
There's a team maybe that could be helped by him, but he's no different than most of the guys on the waiver. He can put up points and he can put up stinkers. I would go with Moncrief because if you've got Hilton, then he's the perfect replacement for that time. He's going to be great during that time. And when Moncrief's value drops off, you no longer need it because T.Y. Hilton's back.
I'm not sure Moncrief's value is going to drop off. I think that Moncrief's value is certainly increased if Hilton is out. But I think Moncrief's value is going to go up if Andre Johnson looks like he did in that week. And Bills' defense are tremendous. Do not underrate the value of playing a spectacular defense. But Andre Johnson looked kind of old, and Moncrief has all the physical tools to get it done.
I agree with you. He's the natural fit there, and he's got a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, yeah. Andrew Luck,
Sherpico in Zanesville, Ohio. Says,
what is?
I like it.
I think the names are unique.
That's a great Sherpico.
Looking for your input on who to activate for Monday night in his PPR league is a great question. This is tonight. Ryan Matthews or Tevin Coleman. Thank you. I know my answer, but I'm just gonna. Every single flex question in the entire week one has been Ryan Matthews related.
That is 100% factual.
Yeah. So answer the question.
I'm laughing over here because I feel like my answer has to be Ryan Matthews, just because I'm not joking when I say I've literally been dreaming about him scoring a touchdown. I know it's going to happen. Honestly, the answer here has to be Tevin Coleman because I think he's first right now. But I will also say if this was my team, I'd put Ryan Matthews in. I would go for that glory.
So
I'm
you
going Ryan
answered
Matthews.
both questions.
I'm going Ryan Matthews.
Okay, you're officially saying Ryan Matthews. Mike?
I'm going with Ryan Matthews.
Well, I'm going Tevin Coleman. I want like something lower than a water bet here because I'm just.
I've already got a water bet going on with Coleman.
With Matthews.
No, I know Ryan Matthews
and Brandon Coleman. Me and you. By the way, I won our water bet with the Joey Randall McFadden, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Joe Randall out-touched Jerry McFadden. That
what was
correct.
Was there any other bets this week?
There are some few, but that will be paid off later because we have a Teddy Bridgewater versus Cam Newton
this week.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And there is Ryan Matthews versus Brandon.
So we'll run down those tomorrow too. So John in Tampa wants to know standard scoring 16-man war league Monday Night Football flex options between Tevin Coleman or Mike Wallace. And then he just throws in, he'd like to know who the best running back in Atlanta is going to be. If you just want to just let him know.
I still think the best running back will be Coleman. Or if you want to break it down even more, the guy who gets the trust for the passing game.
I think that's a good point because they're going to need to be able to protect Matt Ryan. The offense is going to be predicated on the passing game and letting him get the ball to Julio Jones, get the ball to Roddy White. So,
right, and we've seen Freeman in that role, and he hasn't been great, but we have no idea. When the bullets are really flying, can Coleman hold up?
Well, and that we need to recognize that from a rookie contributing perspective across the board, whether it's Melvin Gordon, whether it's Ameer Abdullah. If you want to be on the field, you need to be able to protect the quarterback because not every single play you're going to get a screen pass you can take to the house. And so that is a really good point, Mike. Jason, between those two guys, Wallace and Coleman, who are you starting tonight?
I think I'm starting Tevin Coleman. I like Mike Wallace a little bit, but I feel like either one you have to get a big play. The winner between this matchup is going to be whoever breaks a bigger play, and I think Tevin Coleman's just going to have more opportunities to break a big play, so I'm just going opportunity.
Two speedsters. So by deduction, if people asked you Matthews, Coleman, Wallace, that is the order in which you'd have them as flex options.
That would be correct.
And for me, I'm going to go with Tevin Coleman because all news says that he is the starter, and Devontae Freeman has been very limited with his hamstring injury still, so it's just kind of the opportunity where we know Coleman will touch the ball, and it's very possible that Wallace only sees 3 targets. These things can happen with a wide receiver.
Very excited to see the debut of a little-known running back, Adrian Peterson, in tonight's game. That will be exciting to see. We'll see some Carlos Hyde action, a bunch of fantasy implications across the board. Very excited to see the shootout between, or is it a shootout? 55 over-under, Philly and Atlanta?
Yeah.
Do you expect the over or the under on that?
I'm taking over.
Whoa, yeah.
I really am.
I take the under. I think these things sometimes.
I think the Eagles are going to put up 44 points.
Woo! As a Bradford owner, I am very excited.
I was going to ask, how are you feeling about Sammy Biscuits tonight?
Sammy Biscuits. I am feeling like I might have made a mistake not starting Tom Brady or Carson Palmer, my other 2 options. But I think Bradford, if he's on the field, he's going to produce. Couple touchdowns guaranteed. Come on now.
All to Ryan Matthews.
Right. So, all right, that's it for today's show. Again, we'll be back here tomorrow talking waivers. Visit us on Twitter at the FFBallers, thefantasyfootballers.com.
Jointhefoot.com. You want to be a part of the best fantasy community out there? You join the Foot. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers.